Hello guys, hello. We are back again with one of our yet another rants. Yeah, and this week we decided to watch a rather interesting action flick that has been getting a lot of rave reviews. People and critics alike, critics that we kind of read and look up to, have been really enjoying this movie. And so we decided to check it out. We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about a couple more things. But yeah, so the movie was Kill.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's go with you first. You can tell us what you thought about it.
My expectations were pretty much similar. I was expecting something mind-blowing, to be honest, because I don't see a lot of critics rallying behind like a good Indian film. It happens quite rarely. So I read Rahul Desai's review, I read David Ehrlich's review, and I was like, okay, let's go for this. But I think before we get into the details of the film, we should just set up a premise of what exactly people can expect without giving any spoilers. So Kill is basically a hyper-violent action film which is set in a train. Okay, it involves army commando who has to fight through that train in order to save someone. Okay, so it's like a very claustrophobic kind of an action piece, and I think the whole movie is set inside the train, so that kind of makes it interesting because the train can't stop and there are killers on both sides of the train, and this guy has to figure it out. Coming to the point of action films, I'm also not someone who really resonates with action films. I'm not because I don't enjoy too much violence. I like violence for a specific purpose. When I was watching Kill, I was thinking of this particular quote, which is Alfred Hitchcock's quote, which he said that if I'm filming a conversation, okay, and I just leave out some bits for you, you'll get bored. But if I soon tell you that in the middle of that conversation there's a bomb involved, suddenly everything they say is very interesting. So even in this, with any action film, the premise is what drives the action. And the purpose of why the action is happening is very important.
Yeah.
But in Kill, or in a lot of action films, I feel that that's kind of lost because it becomes a purposeless bloodbath after a while.
So that's the review. I think we are moving to the review where even I felt like it was a lot of gratuitous violence. Unlike what everyone has been saying, the good things, I didn't really enjoy the movie. I think 45 minutes into it, I realized that it wasn't made for me. I wasn't the demographic for it.
Right.
And yeah, coming to your point as well, it was just a lot of unnecessary bloodbath. Even if there was in the script there was a purpose, right?
Yeah.
There was a goal, an agenda, a very emotional one indeed.
Right.
There was a little bit of a vengeful theme to it as well. No spoilers, but it's just the way it is. You kill people, that's what's gonna happen. But yeah, that was the whole undercurrent of it. Didn't hit me emotionally the way that I would have expected it to.
Okay.
And with action movies, that is all the physical aspects, the physical reactions that you get, right? It has to have a very core emotional reason behind it. It was very typical thoda saas bahu grief and rona dhona, and the acting, barring a couple of people, felt a little melodramatic. What about you? Yeah.
Well, I also think that when we are talking about movies like Kill, first of all, it's by a debut director, debut actor. So, of course, given that, it's a big deal because the craft is phenomenal. There's no questions about it. The way they've used handheld camera, the way the screenplay has been structured, the way they've used violence also is very new, very fresh. I think that because we consume a lot of cinema, we are not really surprised by it. But to a lot of people who are sitting in theaters, this is something really new and really fresh.
Yeah.
So I guess for people who complain about the fact that Indian movies are not really pushing the boundaries, this is one that is pushing the boundary. I guess we don't enjoy the boundary that is being pushed.
Yeah.
And that's a different conversation which we'll be continuing on. But if you're someone who's interested in something new, this is definitely a movie you should be checking out, because I feel that the lens we are coming from is slightly different, where we've watched Old Boy, we've watched Raid, we've watched Panic Room, and we've seen supreme interpretations of a similar sort of a screenplay. So we are also coming from a slightly holier than thou perspective, I must say.
But yeah, I think the good part about this movie was the screenplay. You pointed that out, and I think even the action choreography was pretty decent. Given the camera angles, given the limited space that you have, the way that they were able to execute it, there was quite a bit of finesse to it, and that is, I think, the technical aspect where they've pushed the boundary, which was nice. So I think in terms of technical execution and in terms of filmmaking, it was a good attempt, pretty solid attempt. The other, like, story wise, there are some flaws and some issues there, but someone who likes action, someone who wants to check out something new that's come out of the Hindi film industry, the Indian cinema landscape, go for it for sure.
Yeah. And I think the conversation that we are veering towards is probably a broader conversation on how violence is used in cinema. I remember reading an interview by this director who was watching Pulp Fiction for the first time at Cannes, and there is a scene where Jules and Vincent, they're in a car, and behind there's this guy who they've caught from the apartment, and his head is blown off. Right, so the director was sitting in the audience and everyone was clapping, and he was actually shocked that, dude, actually, if you look at like the bear of what is happening, some people are clapping because this dude's head is blown off. Sure, the situation is funny, but you're clapping for violence. That one was something that I thought about a lot while watching Kill, because how much violence can you put without making me feel I don't know, making me detest it a little bit, because...
Or even numb to it.
Or numb to it. We are numb to violence in a way already, I feel. Because, it's not a big deal. But as soon as you add purpose to the violence, we end up like cheering for it anyway, which is also a very disturbing thought.
Emotionally investing in a character is such a core thing, right? Like, I think even in this movie, there were a couple of villains who... One of them was a little funny-esque. He had like some, quips and certain things to say. He had a little bit of a personality like that. I think a little loosely inspired from Mirzapur maybe.
Yeah.
But there was this one character, and then the other one was like this patriarch who's like trying to like rally all the bad guys together and everything. So when you have like good, deep villains and like bad, not villains actually, just like antagonists or like bad characters, people on the other side, they are fleshed out, then you're like, okay, what you resonate with like deeply, and then you're able to like get invested into it. But like, I think while I was watching this movie, for me, the entire thought that like, one constant thought that I had was, where do you use violence as a tool for storytelling? For like emotional storytelling even, versus entertainment or something that's fun, something to like get a reaction out of you, get the ball rolling, get little bits and pieces here, just like excited and all of that, those kind of emotions. I was thinking of movies like the first show that popped into my head because I've been recently watching it was The Boys, right? That show is it's like this take on how superheroes, if they existed in the real world, what would it actually be like? So it's a very realistic take on a lot of things. So there's a lot of masochism, there's a lot of sadism, a lot of like actual gory violence, and like actual human intentions, but of a person who has like super being powers. So like that kind of dynamic is very interesting in the show. And there, personally for me, the violence or the action is entertaining. It kind of fits really well into the whole puzzle of the story that they're trying to tell, the world that they've built, which is very similar to us. But there it fits a lot, even if it's like maybe badly done once in a while. Then there's a movie, let's say like Mad Max. It's like you're imagining something, it's like something way into the future, but again very like emotionally held, like a movie, the first movie at least, even the second one for that matter. And the way I think the director,
the second one is Furiosa.
I forgot the director's name.
George Miller.
Yeah, the way Miller has shot it as well. I mean, I know there was a lot of like problems and like a lot of frustration on set, but the way he shot these, like, it's a moving action sequence. It's very interesting and entertaining, engaging to watch, right? With Kill, there were a lot of moving pieces like that. Like you have a moving train, and inside that train there's a lot of that happening. I wasn't as engaged in certain parts. I'm like, theek hai, chaku. Like fine, slash, blood, great, got the point. Like I had actually like shut my eyes for a couple of minutes because it was just getting a little too much in a way which wasn't engaging, wasn't like making me feel anything. So
the movie I was thinking about which really used violence or like made me like feel for the violence properly was Agnipath. Agnipath in the end.
The first one.
The first, not the original one. Even the Hrithik Roshan one. Just the story, right?
Oh, yeah.
The story about this guy who's like harboring revenge inside him, and that's why every punch he delivers to that guy, you're with him, right? Here the violence becomes mindless because after a while you're like, okay, this guy, something happened to him, like his family is in danger. It's a survival drama, right? But the elements that propel that this guy's murderous rampage are not convincing enough as, say, Agnipath's Kill is a Tiger Shroff movie. If I put Tiger Shroff in this frame, everything fits.
Perhaps.
Everything fits.
Perhaps.
I was like, okay,
like
this dude.
ruggedy.
Yeah, no, because the moment I look at Tiger Shroff, I'm like, okay, this dude can like kill an entire train. You know what I mean? So there are two scenarios that can work in this kind of script, right? One is that you have an action star and chalo, okay, job done, convinced. Second is you have a face where कि ये यहाँ पे क्या कर रहे हैं, इससे कैसे गोली चल गया, like Michael Corleone, right? You don't know whether this guy is actually going to kill people. That's the surprise. The moment you introduce him as a commando, you're like, okay, that's the job done, right? That tension is gone. The tension of that कि अरे train नहीं हिल रहा है, oh fuck, how will they get out of this? Oh, he's a commando, okay, problem solved.
Yeah.
That is like, that could have been built more according to me. But
yeah, that's true. Even if there are two commandos, there were two commandos on the train. There has to be some tension built. Like stakes were not high. I knew they'll stop. I knew the end. It was a little predictable that way. A couple of parts weren't, but otherwise, I think this movie wasn't meant to be for storytelling. It was meant to be for like a lot of action, for a lot of people clapped at certain moments. So we watched this in Bangalore. And there were a couple of moments, a couple of like proper action, like
action
spikes.
pieces.
Yeah, like these points where people were like, oh yeah, fuck this guy. Like just like they went little, they were happy.